with you.
So thank you everyone for joining us or hanging around, whichever you did.
This is for the two of us. They got 3 waters over there.
Yeah. Are we good? Oh, great. So before we kick off, just like to thank all our sponsors for making this possible. And I will hang over to our moderator once he takes his seat.
I'm good. You.
Dan, take it away.
Thank you, Chris. And welcome, everybody, and thank you for attending this session on automation and for coming to ITW this year. This is part of the network transformation track, which is actually going to be growing at ITW and in the capacity conferences. So we have an esteemed panel here. You can see who they are. And we're going to talk about automation. Now, automation is a word that's bandied about, and everybody probably has a different definition and a different understanding of it. We're going to try to find some clarity today to try to demystify it and to explain the what, importantly the why, and to some degree the how of automation. We've heard about it in network transformation and digital transformation, and it's really important in many different instances and examples. And as we go through the panel, you'll hear different viewpoints about what automation means to them. We have 4 representatives here of different sorts of players in the industry. So we have a very rounded perspective on automation, why you do it, where you do it, when you do it, and in particular, we're going to hopefully get into what we haven't automated yet that we need to automate. So I'm going to go down and give the panelists an opportunity to introduce themselves, just say their name, their role in their organization, and just very quickly how automation fits into their activities, and so why they're here on the panel. And then we'll go through some questions, and if we can make some time at the end, we'd love to have your questions from the audience. So let me start on my left with Rashid.
Hi, I'm Rashid Bleely. I'm CTO for the Mass Scale Infrastructure Group at Cisco. I am in charge of the entire service provider automation portfolio. That includes all of the controllers from IP, optical, multi-layer. I just recently came back into Cisco after a little stint at a startup company that was focused on automation. Been focused on automation my entire life, and so I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, I am Jezebel Gilmore, and I am the Chief Commercial Officer of ConnectBase. And previous to ConnectBase, I founded a little automation company called PacketFabric.
Hi, my name is Veer Pasi. I'm the CEO of Kalam Telecom. We are a niche enterprise and wholesale operator in Middle East. We realized pretty quickly over a period of time that as far as the customers are concerned, network, pricing, product has become a commodity. Only way to differentiate is customer experience. And we started our digital transformation journey a couple of years back. I'm happy to share our learnings of this journey to the forum today. Thanks.
Great. Great to be here. Stan Hubbard, a principal analyst at MEF. We're an industry organization of about 200 companies from around the world, and about 130 or so are service providers. And we are very much involved in the standardization of services and the APIs that we can automate the business functions between service providers and also the operational functions. So I'll be happy to share perspective on that.
Thank you, Stan. And I'm Dan Pitt. I've got my consultancy, Palo Alto Innovation Advisors. I live in Palo Alto, California, but I'm actually a retired senior vice president of the MEF Forum and still active in some projects there. and I spent 6 years running the Open Networking Foundation, where we really tried to upend the whole notion of closed systems and turn them into open networking solutions for the benefit of this particular industry. So to get started with, I'm going to ask the panelists, starting with Veer, to talk about what you're automating and why you're automating it. And in particular, I would like to explore where automation benefits you and where it benefits your customers.
So as I said, Dan, that when we started our digital transformation journey, automation was a piece of that journey. We realized that the way to differentiate ourselves as a telco is to offer a differentiated customer experience. So we were very clear that we want to look into each and every touch point of our process and systems which are customer facing, and we want to make it automated, efficient, a click of a button for our customers. So we looked into the entire journey, which starts from CPQ to order management to service delivery to customer service, network performance, and we are in different stages of evolution for each one of them. Of course, we also realize the fact that, when we look at network automation from a telecom perspective, the first thing comes to our mind, fulfillment and automated fulfillment would probably be the customer's first priority. But you'll be surprised, as we started a journey 1.5 years back, the first thing a customer is looking at is transparency and visibility of his experience the moment he places an order till the time it is fulfilled and managed. And that itself is a big plus. And fulfillment comes somewhere down, which if you are able to automate the entire journey, which is great, but bringing a transparency to the entire portfolio for the customer is something what we are looking at. And so I think the portion which is quite interesting for us is the fact that, of course, when you look at some of the digital transformation, there's some elements which are mostly towards cost and efficiency and quality. But what customer looks at from his perspective is a quick service delivery, an SLA-based management, and more importantly, visibility. I think transparency is something what we have learned over this 1 year, what customers really appreciate when we bring it on the table.
Thank you. So Jezebel, you help 300 telcos automate their buying and selling. Tell me how you sort of onboard those customers, what they're mostly trying to automate, and how they benefit from that.
Well, how about we start with how they benefit, and then we can talk about how we get them onto the platform. In how they benefit is they have now automated process in their buying and selling of their services with other service providers. That reduces the amount of time it takes from quote to order. It reduces the amount of error because it's fully automated, and allows them to have the most up-to-date pricing because it's instantaneous and it's automated, so that they don't go back to the customer with multiple sets of errors, which causes dissatisfaction with customers in the first place, right? So with those benefits, and for the service providers who are actually selling services, they're exposed to a much wider audience they otherwise wouldn't have access to. Because for most traditional service buying and selling, as you know it, you only buy services. The telecommunications community is very much based on relationships. And if you don't already have an existing relationship with someone, you wouldn't go ask them for pricing. In fact, you won't even know who has serviceability in the location if you don't have data to it. So ConnectBase's value is not just in that we are making the buying and selling process automated, but we're expanding the visibility for a seller and for the buyers. So, and we're reducing the time and the cost. How do we onboard a customer? We work with the customer to get their building list into our platform and their pricing sheet. And in fact, the platform takes privacy into consideration as the nature of our business. So you're not exposing your price to a general public. What you're doing is we create bespoke exposure of your pricing to your customer that has an existing commercial relationship with you. So for each individual customer that you have on the platform, you can have a different set of pricing, as well as any of the other attributes of your service that you want to disclose to them.
Thank you. So Rashid, a question for you. You've spent your career selling into telcos. Help us understand what your sort of sales pitch is for what you do regarding automation, what you're helping them automate, and in particular, how much is just automating network operation and how much is automating service fulfillment?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll start with the last part of your question, which is automating tasks versus automating services and service creation and service management. I think that automating tasks is where the crawl aspect, when people are on their automation transformation journey, they typically start at the task automation level. At Cisco, we have been very, very focused on trying to enhance the ability for service providers to actually automate their product delivery, right? Their services. We want to be able to decrease the amount of time it takes to deploy a service. We want to make sure that we can assure that the service is living up to its guarantees. And we're also to the point that some of my colleagues here were making. We want to make it really fast and error-free in the sales process for the service provider to evaluate their ability to actually deliver a service at the promised performance levels. So that's kind of the problem space that we're attacking. Our customers are at various stages, and they're experiencing a variety of challenges, and we're trying to meet them where they are. So typically what tends to slow our customers down is the fact that their processes are well established. They've been running their business for a long time the way that they've been running it, and they need to transform those processes in order to fully take advantage of what automation can bring them. That's sometimes not very appealing. So from an automation perspective, we have to bring them software that helps them run their business the way that they're currently running, and then gradually transition themselves to a new way of working that can experience the full range of benefits.
And just very briefly, what sort of product set goes into providing this automation capability for your customers?
Yeah, so it's a broad space, right? Automation, in where I'm focused on the network infrastructure, it's typically a move away from EMS, NMS type of platforms to more modern network controllers, pieces of software that are responsible for entire portions of the network, for their topology, for the optimization of that topology, and for the creation and management of services across that topology. Now, there are usually in a typical service provider many such networks. They're usually working in concert. You may have services that traverse multiple networks. You may have services that ride across different layers and technologies within the network. And so being able to unify that and bring that all together usually requires an ecosystem of network controllers. And so, as I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later, the interface has become very, very important.
Yes, we will talk about that. And so, Stan, I want to ask you a sort of a high-level question. We're not going to get into the APIs quite yet. But MEF has really been on a journey, starting with the underlays and now going very much to the overlays. The tagline was, global network of automated something or other like that. Give us sort of the high-level philosophy of the journey MEF has gone through since 2015.
Okay, sure, Dan. So MEF is an industry organization, I mentioned, of 200 plus companies around the world. And basically what our focus has been is helping drive this industry transition to dynamic services that are orchestrated across a global ecosystem of automated networks.
Thank you.
And a really good example of that is a network as a service type of solution, right? So in order to do that, in order to have NAS type solutions that are available globally, you're going to need to have automation throughout every part of the value chain, the supply chain, right? That means automation of all the business functions between the actors in the supply chain, between the enterprise customer to the service provider and all the way through to the cloud, right? So you need to have automation at that level, at the business process level, and then also automation at the operational level. So what we've done is we have standardized APIs that allow you to automate the business functions between the service providers and extend that out to the enterprise and ultimately to the cloud. And we're introducing operational APIs over the next 7 months, July through December. We've got 2 releases, and that'll be operational APIs. So essentially what we're talking about is the industry's on a journey, and you're going to have, business strategy transformations, service portfolio transformations, network transformations, workforce transformations, right? You start there, and then you begin to look at the different partners that you have to interact with in the industry, and they all need to be aligned on standardized approaches, including standardized APIs.
Right. Now, in order to automate anything and have it, react automatically, you have to know what's going on inside the network. So you have to have good telemetry and good measurement and good feedback. So actually, I want to start with Rashed. And then I'm going to actually ask Jezebel and Veer, what do you measure to facilitate automation?
Yeah, so it probably depends greatly on the part of the network that you're working with, right? But generally speaking, we do want to measure performance, whether it's traffic rates or whether it's error rates or whatnot. You want to keep an eye on that. In an optical network, you might be looking at various degradation metrics. You might be interested in trying to trend those out. And then you want to try to correlate. There's some intelligence that comes in, right, where you want to try to start correlating the different breakdowns that happen in certain key performance indicators and predicting a failure that may or may not occur, some performance reduction that may be traffic impacting. You want to be able to predict that so that you can reposition the network in order to survive that event or to anticipate it and mitigate it. So we're looking at instrumenting every layer of the network, every device, and exposing within our software platforms. We want the software itself to react and to anticipate within its own sphere of concern, and only publish northbound of itself any kind of alerts that are not addressable by the intelligence that's built into the controller, right? So you want to escalate up to some other level when there's a mitigation that's just not possible.
Thank you. Jezebel.
Well, we automate something totally different than you guys. So we measure the number of transactions within the platform, and we measure the number of connections within the platform, right? How many other service providers is this buyer connected to help them to be more effective? How many quotes are they generating? And how many returns they've got? And, all of that information. And also, we measure the accuracy of the data that's been pushed out, especially on location details, because as I joined ConnectBase, I learned an astonishing fact that there's a huge fallout rate for quoting based on the inaccuracy of addresses. And I was like, wow, I never knew that. It's incredible, but we have proprietary technology in the curation and validation of infrastructure data to make that a foundational piece of our platform to bring additional value to all the service providers to reduce the fallout rate on their quoting process. And that, I think, continue to monitor, manage to that piece of data is also crucial to our customer base and to us.
Thank you. So Veer, you've got to monitor a lot of things because you have to bill correctly. You have to provide SLA assurance, and you want your network to run efficiently and smoothly. So where do where do you value the sensors and the data collections, and especially those that you need to make automation happen in your whole operation?
So as I was saying, the foundation for us for network automation is the customer experience. So we look at each touch point, and we started saying, for me, the matrix is the SLAs. So we have SLAs for the customers from the time we onboard them till the time they're into our life cycle, right? So even, the CPQ, what's an SLA we are currently having for us to give pricing, which is, if it is not automated, we are behind the benchmark. And then it comes to, what's our service delivery, how much time you're taking to fulfill. And as the network operability is still in a nascent stage where, of course, we have the on-net platforms which can be, fulfilled pretty quickly, but a lot of businesses are off-net, right? Cloud integrations are still happening. So in that place, again, we are dependent on external SLAs of our partners. Again, we try to capture those SLAs and see how we can mitigate and optimize these SLAs. Then it comes to the network performance, as Rashid then they confirmed that, of course, we're looking into most of the parameters of network monitoring, security, for example. I mean, it has become the amount of data our SIM collects is phenomenal these days. The log management of SIM has to be automated so that our security team can predict proactively and predictively monitor these malicious attacks and work on them. So I think for us, we look at each and every life cycle, and if I have to answer in one, we're looking at capturing the SLAs, and we're trying to benchmark it, and we're trying to see how we can minimize or make these SLAs real time. That's how we're working on it.
Thank you. So Stan, in 2015, MEF published MEF 55, the LSO reference architecture. This has a number of abstractions and a number of APIs, both east, west, and north, south. This structure has survived very well. I think it was really well chosen because the abstractions make sense. Could you just describe briefly the principal abstractions here that enable follow-on work to instantiate automation through the APIs?
Yeah, so Dan's referring to MEF 55, the LSO reference architecture, and basically it's a set of interface reference points where you have a set of APIs associated with each of those. And north-south would be automation within a service provider. We have APIs for that. We have automation at the business process level between service providers and also the enterprise, and then automation at the operational levels between service providers and the enterprise. So Veer talked about the journey begins with the customer, right? The customer experience. And so that's our approach too, from a standardization point of view. We're saying, what can we do as an industry to deliver a cloud-like experience, an Amazon-like buying experience for the customer, right? In order to do that, you have to have the automation that will do things like accelerate service delivery, right? The key benefits that you have are automating the APIs, the business functions associated with the address validation, the site query, the POQ, the quote, the order, the inventory, the billing and settlement, and so forth. So that's all business process. And what you're able to do with the APIs is accelerate that service and seeing average cycle times drop around 25% or more. That gives you the ability to recognize revenue earlier. So every single API-enabled order is faster revenue, and that improves your customer experience. It makes you a preferred provider for a service provider who's looking for automation-enabled partners around the world. And then, of course, you're on this journey towards these on-demand type services, right? So it's all beginning with the customer, but what can the ecosystem do to deliver that cloud-like experience?
So let's delve into the APIs a little bit. The most successful of the LSO, and that stands for Lifecycle Service Orchestration, APIs are the east-west APIs and the inter-carrier ordering and fulfillment one, which is called Sonata. But you also have 3 north-south APIs, and they're for internal use of managing your resources to fulfill the services that have been promised. And it's funny, I spent a lot of time in the startup world, and you know, getting funding for startup companies is always a challenge. And the real question that goes to many startups is, are you building a painkiller or a vitamin? A painkiller, you know, solves a known problem. A vitamin, you know, gives you new opportunities. So a painkiller saves money. A vitamin helps you make money. Well, the venture capital industry seems much more readily willing to fund painkillers than vitamins. But most of what I've heard about from the panel today is all about the vitamins, being able to offer new services, and not so much we're going to save money in how we operate the network and in our staff and things like that. So I'd like to actually go back and say, how much of what you're doing for automation is to save money and how much is to make money? Start with you, Rashid.
Okay. This is a good one because our customers, the service providers, are much more interested in buying automation that makes them money rather than saves them money.
Okay.
The business case for saving money, for running your operations more efficiently, for mitigating, reducing fallout, you know, all of the costs that make running your business more expensive, it's relatively simple for anybody who spends a lot of time in automation to make the case that automation adds a lot of value there. In order to add value at the revenue generation level, you actually have a lot more hurdles to clear. And the first most important one is your automation has to work. And getting automation working has been the hardest part. And so until it all works, it's very hard to prove that we're going to be able to accelerate revenue generation. You know, that's the elephant in the room with any of these things. The best automation is the automation that works. So even though I think that the big numbers for revenue generation are there, I think that right now the most immediate thing is that there's a survivability problem that service providers are going to face if they do not transform themselves to leverage automation. It's going to be really hard to compete as a service provider if you're not well automated. And that's only going to get harder as those service providers who do adopt automation are leveraging that capability to sell the kinds of services and SLAs that is just impossible to deliver otherwise.
Thank you. Jezebel.
So I love this question because we are making a vitamin that's also a painkiller. So it's fantastic. You can take as many as you want. Our automation actually works, and it's been proven because our customers have provided data and feedback and showing that on the painkiller side, we were able to reduce their quoting time by up to 90% in the return of quotes and in accuracy. So, and on the sell side, we've expanded the customer markets. We've shown, first of all, going back to the quoting side, on the buying side, that they were able to turn those quotes around and sell it to the customers, so they were able to increase their profit margin by a double-digit percentage. And to telcos, that's a pretty big deal. So, and on the sell side, they were able to expand their markets, and again, you know, double-digit percentage in the increase of revenue. So that, again, on both sides, and I love the vitamin and the painkiller analogy. I'm going to be using it a lot in the future. So to me, I feel that we have the solution for this particular community, and it has been proven that it works. And what Dan had said before, earlier on the APIs, I think it's really important to have those standardizations, but what we actually reduce is the amount of development time that each individual telco would have to do. Imagine if you have to develop an API integration to each individual service provider you'd want to connect to. Doesn't matter how much standardization there is, that's a lot of work. But when you work with a platform like ConnectBase, you only have to do that work once with us, and then we make the rest of the interconnection to those service providers available to you.
Thank you. So Veer, you see the world through the lens of the customer experience. So maybe this question is irrelevant to you, but I'd like to know your thoughts.
It's pretty relevant to me because my perspective is before I can look at either whether this investment is going to save money or gonna make me money, I have to make a lot of investment, right? To start with, I mean, automation needs a lot of investments. But I think coming from a telco perspective, look, it's not a choice anymore. You know, it is not that something we have left with a choice to not automate the key elements of a customer journey. If we have to retain and differentiate ourselves and get new customers, we need, as I was mentioning to you, most of the telcos are offering similar pricing, similar products, you know, similar network. I think there hardly any differentiation. Differentiations are left in customer experience, how we differentiate ourselves. So I don't think it's a choice for us. But if I have to measure this particular automation investment, I see it from what efficiency it brings internally for us. And as Rashid was mentioning, I think proof of the pudding lies in testing. Once the automation starts working, you start seeing the benefits on ground. More often than not, in my initial last 12 to 18 months of our automation journey, what we have seen is the customer experience has been phenomenal. For example, just a quick example, we launched a mobile app because we serve both enterprise and carriers, by the way. So I'll give you a perspective from an enterprise. We own enterprise customers. We launched a mobile app with the objective of giving the customers visibility because our network is not yet ready to automate the entire journey. So we said, okay, we'll give an app where customer can come in, he can place an order, there is an e-shop out there, he can trace his orders, whatever service he has, actually he can see an inventory. Imagine, I mean, we got such a great feedback. Well, you know what? I didn't know that with Kalam, we had X services since so long at this price with this contract. That itself brought so much value for them. They said, you know what? Thanks. Most of the operators even don't know what services we have. And again, they started seeing the performance of their services. At this point of time, we have not automated the fulfillment. We're still way ahead of. But the feedbacks we got from the customer on the transparency it brought, it itself allowed us to differentiate ourselves in the market. So I think that's what, from my perspective, I think it's a journey which has to start yesterday. As a telco, it's not a choice for us because that's how the customers will look upon us.
Thank you. So Jezebel mentioned the important point of standardization. I imagine you don't want to have 3 different APIs, you know, one for each of your enterprise, your carrier customers. And they're different anyway. They have to do with ordering and services. They have to do with inventory of equipment and facilities and things like that. So standardization is going to be key if the standards and the APIs that are chosen, the abstractions they reflect, are also really well chosen. So the most popular one of the LSO APIs is the east-west interface between operators called LSO Sonata. Stan, could you bring us up to date on what Sonata capabilities are and what the industry take-up has been?
Yeah, sure. I think the point that Veer made is automation is not really a choice, right? And we used to have a slide that said automation is a must-have, and I ended up changing that slide after having conversations with more and more companies. It's standards-based automation is a must-have. It's not automation is a must-have. If you start with automation as a must-have, then you're running the risk of going off the track when you're trying to play with other players in the ecosystem. It needs to be a plug-and-play approach. You need to have plug-and-play interoperable APIs. And what I mean by that is a lot of the transition that's taken place in the market so far, a lot of those that didn't have the standardized APIs that could scale began this journey with proprietary APIs. And to the point that was made earlier, if you had to sit here and do proprietary APIs with every potential buy and sell partner in the industry, as one pan-European operator told me, I'd still be here working on it 100 years from now. And that's no exaggeration because those APIs could take up to a year to implement with a partner. So you have to have a standardized approach, and what MEF has done with the LSO Sonata APIs that Dan talked about is we've built on top of the TMF APIs and enhanced those APIs with what our CTO likes to call fidelity. It's basically tightly defined context that allows you to be interoperable with other service providers, right? very tightly defined context so that you invest once in those APIs or the set of APIs, and you're able to scale with many different partners and many different services. So that's really critical if you're trying to build out this NAS-enabling ecosystem. You have to be able to plug and play. You have to be able to work with any type of partner within that ecosystem, and you have to be able to support Ethernet, internet access, wavelength, dark fiber, edge compute, and every other type of service out there.
Thank you. So I'm going to just take a little tangent here. This is a wholesale show. ITW has always been a wholesale show, trading capacity. But wholesale business is really just a means of effecting more retail business. It's the customers, the end customers that pay the money. So I'm going to ask, Stan and Veer at first, where the retail side is coming along. Stan, tell us a little bit about where Cantata is, and then Veer, tell us how ready your enterprise customers are for automation, and how ready do they have to be for you to do what you want to do with automation. Start with Stan.
Yeah, so those same basic APIs that we talked about, Sonata, that automate those business functions between service providers, you can use those same basic sets of APIs to automate with the enterprise customer, right? And so, again, that's address validation all the way through quote, order, and so forth. What we've heard, we do have companies on the enterprise side that are interested in those, and you'll have companies that move down that path and service providers that support those. If you round out the picture, though, where it really gets exciting is the operational APIs. We've had, for example, a tier 1 service provider in the US said, what I'm excited about is the fact that I have a lot more transactions going on once the service is up and running than I do, ordering the service, getting customers to order the service. So dynamic service changes, giving that visibility to the service, how it's operating on an end-to-end basis to the enterprise customer with the APIs. That's where it gets really exciting because they're looking for that increased visibility, and it can help that customer be more strategic in their thinking.
Go ahead, Veer.
So the enterprise clients are on different stages of evolution. So we have got, BFSI industry, which is banking and financial, or industrials, or large enterprises. Of course, they are evolving into their digital transformation journey, and hence their expectations from the telcos towards supporting them in, for example, cloud journeys, security journey is very high. But the ones where we see most of the opportunity as a telco is the small and medium enterprises. I mean, these are the enterprises, neither they have the resources, neither they have the strategy, neither they have the guidance to facilitate them in this journey. And that's where, as a telco like us, we look at it as a huge opportunity. Typically, if you look at small and medium enterprises, they are between 70 to 90% of an economy, right? While large enterprises are, contributes 10 to 12% of the economy. So these enterprises, we look at it as a huge opportunity to provide them an ecosystem so that we can help them move up the value chain, right? I mean, we want to give them a platform where they can come in, pick up telecom technology space, very specific to their domain. They can, that's where we are investing in SaaS applications which are industry specific, cloud applications which are industry specific, and even network as a services which are very specific to the small and medium enterprises. And that's how we look upon the enterprises out there, how we can move up the value chain for them. And that's a great opportunity for us.
Thank you. Just for the panel, we have until 15 minutes on the timer. 'Cause we have to, the next panel is at 2:30. So these processes are implemented in software, and they're in servers in different places. They might be in the cloud, or they might be more local. But it seems to be wherever you have software these days, people ask, well, where is AI? Where do we have artificial intelligence and machine learning in the software that you have, and how can it benefit what you're supposed to do with your software? So I'd like to ask Rashid and then Jezebel, where AI does fit in, where it might fit in, and maybe where you don't want it.
Okay, so in the area of automation that I focus on, there's a lot of data correlation that has to happen because we're in the business of gluing different parts of the network together, gluing different sources of information together to form a complete picture. AI is really, really good at pattern recognition. And of course, we're seeing some new developments that are way beyond pattern recognition. But one of the things that's well understood is how to leverage AI for pattern recognition. So we are putting some investment in trying to leverage AI to identify patterns within all of the different data streams that we have to improve the accuracy and shorten the amount of time it takes to turn around and produce some coherent and correlated models. The other aspect is in trend analysis. It's another major benefit of the AI, and we're looking at using AI to combine intelligence about analyzing trends in one area of the network and using that to draw some conclusions about another area of the network, and to just improve the level of autonomy that the software itself can have, so that at the operations level, we're really only looking at things that require some attention or action on the part of a human. Where do I not want to see AI? Actually, I love AI. I'm very excited about the possibilities for AI. As a human being, I'm a little bit worried about what that could mean, but from a technology perspective, it's extremely exciting.
Thank you. Isabel.
Well, we are looking at how to leverage AI for our data science team, and that are working through our curated data to help us go through the amount of analysis of that data in producing insight for our customer base. And similarly, in looking at the trends in the data that our platform generates to help us get a better understanding on how to support our customers and where to support them and where to develop additional features to support them. Where we're not utilizing AI is our customer interface, how we are communicating with our customers, and how our customers leveraging the platform. And many of our customers are using API. I don't see any AI features that's being implemented on that front. And in fact, we don't see any AI on the customer integration front either. But AI has its place. I love AI. I think anybody who loves automation has a special place in their heart for AI, but it's not everywhere yet, and it's got a limited use case right now in our platform.
Thank you. Go ahead, Veer.
Quick, interesting, with the advent of cognitive AI, with ChatGPT coming in, I saw some of my CTOs and engineering team playing with intent-based automation. Very interesting. In ChatGPT, for example, if you put a prompt, it gets your code, right? Now, they're playing with, putting network policies and objectives into it, and it converting them into standard configurations. And this allows you to standardize the configurations, store them, backup them, refer to them, but it brings standardization of configurations in network behavior. So again, intent-based automation is one part of it, which is quite recent. I saw some of my engineers playing around. I thought I'll give an example.
All right, so the last question for each panelist is, what have you learned so far in your automation journey that you wish you knew at the beginning and that you would like the audience to remember when they leave? Stan, we'll start with you.
Oh, man. Oh, Dan, that's not fair. You got to give me a second to think about that. Well, I think I'd like to have had more contacts when I started this journey. And what I mean by that is industry contacts within the different service providers. Those that were the IT professionals and the developers and all that. I had to spend a lot of time building up the database to be able to do the research that we have done on that. And just to touch on that point, we have produced a report on the adoption of the APIs, and it's been a year for that. And if you want to see that report, I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards. But I'd like to have had a better understanding about all the different players that I needed to talk to understand where the industry is going.
Good. Thank you. Veer.
I wish we would have started early the process. No, on that note, that's of course, as I said, the journey has to be started as early as possible. I seriously wish that I probably have started a few years earlier. But I think a quick learning on this one, I realized that our realization on the fact that customer experience should be the pivot for automation, it took us a while. When we started our journey of automation, it was in silos. It was done by different business units heads having their own objectives. It took us some time to realize and come back and hold back and say, you know what, I mean, the roadmap is not clear. Everyone is working in silos. What's the end objective we're trying to achieve? And once we started putting customer first, I think that's when we started getting clarity on how the automation should move. Well, network, as I was giving example multiple times, fulfillment is not the only part of it. The visibility itself was a big learning for me.
So that's a great point. To start with the customer viewpoint. Jezebel.
What do I wish I knew? I wish I knew how little talent there are in the world that understands telco automation. There's such limited number of people that understands both infrastructure and software development, and specifically in the collaboration and trading of services between all of the telcos. And what I wish I knew is also how much willingness that our target customers and audience have in automation. Everybody wants it, they know they need it, they know that they will be obsolete if they don't get into this evolution, but it's difficult to find capable talent to do the work for you. So it takes a village, like everybody has to get together to make that automation possible, because if you automated and I didn't, then we can't trade services in an automated fashion. So for me, just solving that challenge in making automation available is something that I'm learning.
Thank you. So if you have this talent, she's hiring. Rashid, last word.
Okay, so if I could talk to my younger self, I would say, Rashid, you can't change the world only through technology. You have to also look at culture and processes. I would have paid a lot more attention to that early on, trying to help businesses transform how they operate in order to adopt automation, and to the point that Jezebel was just making sure that the automation transformation is a activity that brings all the stakeholders together, not just engineering, not just architecture, but also security, also wholesale, also retail. Everybody has to actually have a seat at the table, because we are architecting something completely new that is going to be a very difficult transition to get right if the right people don't have input into the process.
Thank you. Please join me in thanking the panel.
Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, and thank you very much to Dan for the excellent moderation. I'm sure you agree that was a fantastic panel. And we got another one coming up looking at blockchain telecom use cases. So a little bit of learning for those out there that aren't sure how it applies. So we'll be starting that in 2 minutes. So please take your seats and look forward to it.